Yud Beis Tamuz this year, where Yud Beis Tamuz is on a Shabbos. Yud Beis Tamuz 1927 was the date that the Previous Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, was it was let out of imprisonment. He was arrested by the communists for his terrible crime of teaching Yiddishkeit, and the 12th of Tamuz was the day that he actually received his final, that he was going to be released from prison, even though he was actually released and got his release papers only the next day, which was the 13th of Tamuz, because of some type of legal holiday that they were celebrating. So the Rebbe is going to connect the idea of Yud Beis Tamuz with the Geula of the Moshiach. Chaga Geula Yud Beis Tamuz, the redemption Yom Tov of the 12th of Tamuz, Kosher is connected in B'miyuchad Megula Ikris primarily with the main Geula Mitzvah Shleimah the Moshiach Kenu, the true and complete redemption through Moshiach. So the Rebbe says, how come? What's the connection between the two? Why would that Geula be connected, the Geula of the previous Rebbe, with the Geula of Moshiach? Kol Inyan Geula, first of all matters of Geula, Afilum, even if they are Geula Shalish Prati, even of an individual person. Shudim v'Shayachim Zalazeh are bound up and associated one with the other. And the Rebbe brings over there the idea that it says in the Gemara concerning which bracha in Shemoneh Esrei is the idea of which bracha in Shemoneh Esrei is the bracha that has to do with Geula, is the seventh bracha in Shemoneh Esrei. And over there, what the Gemara speaks about it is he speaks about the idea of a redemption that happens in the seventh year. And even though it's only a redemption of fields going back to, or an Eved Ivri going back to his master and so on, in other words, he's released on the seventh year. Still in all, we associated the entire level of Geula with that as well. So I'm going to read it inside. I'm just giving you the background of what he's talking about. So he says, that is understood from the words of the Gemara. Why is the bracha of Geula Goyal Yisrael and Shemoneh Esrei? Why is it the seventh bracha? The Gemara goes through the order of the brachas in Shemoneh Esrei. Why which bracha has its particular number in the order of the brachas. She says, since we have the idea of redemption that has to do with the seventh year, therefore they establish it in the seventh bracha. And he says about the redemption in the seventh year, Afagav the high gula like gula the golasi, even though that the redemption of the seventh year, that servants go out to freedom in the seventh year, is not a geula from galus, not that he's being redeemed from exile, but also it talks about there's an idea of the seventh year having to do with being redeemed from general idea of trouble. Again, I'm not going to go into what the Gemara is talking about over there. Still in all, since there's a name of Geula, they established it in the seventh bracha. So the essential thing, what the Rebbe is trying to bring from here is that there is even a private Geula or a Geula that has nothing to do with Geulus, is since it's called Geula, since it's called redemption, it has to do with Mashiach. So if that's so concerning a private redemption, when we're talking about the redemption of the leader of the generation that took place on the 12th of Tamuz, it says this in our Parsha, it's brought down. Rashi explains that the leader of the generation, like the entire generation, because the leader is the entire the entirety and everything. So therefore, since the leader of the generation, it was his redemption, therefore, as well, in a similar vein, the redemption of the leader of the generation is connected with the geula of the whole Klal Yisrael that will come about when Moshiach comes. And the Rebbe says, especially according to the words of who was redeemed in his very well-known letter to the celebration of the first Yud Beis Tamuz, that he wrote this letter in 1928. Not only I alone that Hashem redeemed on the 12th of Tammuz, rather all that love Torah, shoym mitzvah, all that observe mitzvahs, the gamas are called Shem Yisrael, even all those that is called by the name Yisrael, they are all included and they were all redeemed via this redemption. This is a general redemption of all types of Yidden. So therefore it's connected with the idea of the Geula of Mashiach's times. Top of the second column, and this, and primarily, the redemption of the 12th of Tammuz was the beginning and the opening to a new order in spreading the well springs outward. Because the Previous Rebbe was redeemed from prison, but he could not remain in the Soviet Union, so he began his further exiles where he had to leave the Soviet Union, and then he was settled in Latvia, he settled in Poland, till he finally settled in America. So essentially, Yud Beis Tammuz, the 12th of Tammuz's redemption, set the stage for spreading the well springs in the Western Hemisphere, in what Chassidus calls, or the Previous Rebbe calls, the lower hemisphere. Even in the lower hemisphere. It's something that is low, that's nothing as low as it. And even more so, not just that the well springs spread out to the lower hemisphere. Now that the center of Lubavitch became moved to the lower hemisphere, to America and so on, so now the spreading of the well springs comes out of this lower place. It's not just that the well springs reach so far, but here is the place where it's spreading out. Through this becomes the ultimate idea of that Moshiach told the Baal Shem Tov that when your well springs will spread outward, and then Moshiach will come. Then it becomes fulfilled the promise of King Moshiach that he will come when your well springs will spread outward. By the way, the Rebbe often explains that Yefutzah means not just that the results and the waters of the wellspring will leave the wellspring and come outward, but it means that the actual wellsprings itself will come outward. And by the fact that we're saying that now the lower half of the world, where the Previous Rebbe used to use the expression, where Matan Torah did not take place, the lower hemisphere is now becoming the source for spreading the well springs outward. So that's the actual movement of the well springs to the most outside place, to the lowest place, to the place where Matan Torah did not take place. According to this, we can explain the hint and the time. Why did it take place at this particular date? Yud Beis Tammuz, the 12th of Tammuz. What's the idea of the number 12? Sheroimiz ala Gula, the Chol Yud Beis Shifti Yisrael, that hints on the redemption of all 12 of the tribes of the Jewish people. Shifti Yud Ke, the tribes of Hashem. That is the advantage to the future redemption. That during the future redemption, all the Yidden will become redeemed. Call Yud Beis Hashvatim, all the 12 tribes. Until even one Yid will not remain behind in exile. And then, like I mentioned before, on the 12th of Tammuz, he was let known, but he did not get his actual papers telling him that he's free. the ultimate, where he actually got his papers, was V'Shleimus HaGeula B'Yud Gimel Tamuz, and the completion of the Geula was on the 13th of Tammuz. K'yadu, as it's known, Shabiyud Beis Tammuz Nizbasaru Shuvchavshim Galusi, on the 12th of Tammuz. He was told the good news that he was going to be let free from his exile by Yitzil Lecheres B'Poel Mamish Oibid Gimel Tammuz, and actually going out to freedom was on the 13th of Tammuz. And what's the number 13? 13 is B'Gematria Echad, is the numerical equivalent of Echad Sheroimez Al Agili D'Yechido Shaloylam. It indicates the revelation of the single one of the world, meaning Hashem Himself, B'Chal Ha'olam Kule, in the entire world, which is the message of the word Echad. Hamshachas Ha'alef Alufi Shaloylam. We're drawing down the Aleph, representing the master of the world. Bezayin Rakim Va'aretz, which is the letter Ches, in the seven heavens and the earth, which is the numerical equivalent of the letter Ches, number 8. And the last letter of the word Echad is Vidalid, indicates Vidalid Ruchas Olam, the four sides of the compass. So the idea of the 13th of Tammuz is the idea of Echad, bringing Hashem revealed into the world. Like it says, in that day, it'll be Hashem will be one, His name will be one. And then the Rebbe emphasizes and adds, this year it's even more emphasized, the connection of the Geula of the 12th of Tammuz to the true and complete redemption. It's at Kamen Yonah, because many ideas. The fact of the date when the 12th of Tammuz comes out during the week, that this year, the way the calendar works this year, both the year that Rebbe said the Sicha and the way it's actually this year in Tafshem Pei Gimel, it comes out b'Yom HaShabbos. Yom HaShabbos b'chlal kashur imagula asida. We know that the day of Shabbos in general is connected with the future redemption. Kimuvim Meshirish Yom HaShabbos, like we know from the Shir Shel Yom that we recite on Shabbos, Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos. Chazal explained that Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos is referring to the future Shabbos, the Yom Shekuli Shabbos Menucha L'Chaya Elam, to the day that's entirely Shabbos and rest forever. So too we find this in the Nusach of Benching, that we add on Shabbos the special Harachman Yanchaleni Yom Shekuli Shabbos Menucha L'Chaya Elamim, that the compassionate one that will give us to inherit the day that's entirely Shabbos and rest forever. Kivin Shekol Shabbos. Why do we recite it on Shabbos? Both this Mizmor for Shir Shel Yom and both this Harachman. Kivin Shekol Shabbos Ein V'Dugmas Yom Shekul Shabbos Menucha L'Chaya Elam, since every Shabbos is similar to and like a piece of the day that's entirely Shabbos and rest forever. Balachas Kama V'Kama, how much more so when both things come together. Yom HaShabbos Shechal B'Chag HaGeula Yud Beis Tammuz, a day of Shabbos that comes out into the redemption, the 12th of Shabbos. Shekosher Mitzad Atzman Gam Lule Akvius Yom HaShabbos Magula Asida, on its own is already connected with the Gula Asidos. Now you have two things that are coming together. You have that Shabbos and you have the Geula of Yud Beis Tammuz, so you have a double connection with the future redemption. Another connection with the future redemption, Beis Parshas Shavua, the Parsha of the week. Piskum Vayros Rabbeinu Azakim, like the saying and the directive of the Alter Rebbe, Shetzrichim Liches Samazman, one needs to live with the times. Parshas Chukas-Balak, primarily it's Parshas Balak that the Rebbe is going to derive this connection. Ubafrat Ba'ashir, the Yom HaShabbos Ashir, the Shvi, especially the Shir that we read on Shabbos Day, which is the 7th Shir of the week. In the Bilam's prophecy, it speaks about the coming of Moshiach. Like the Rambam writes in explaining the obligation in the belief in the coming of Moshiach. Whoever does not believe in Mashiach, or he could believe in Mashiach, but he doesn't await his coming. He's not only denying all the other prophets, he's denying Torah Moshe Rabbeinu, because the Torah testified about the coming of Mashiach. After Parshas Bilam Nemar V'Sham Nemar V'Sham Niba B'Shnei Mashiach. Even in Parshas Bilam it was told, and over there he prophesied about the two Mashiachs. The Mashiach Harishon Shu David, and the first Mashiach, that's David HaMelech. Mashiach Achron Shoymin Rebbanov Mashiach Yisrael B'Achroino. And the final Mashiach that's going to arise from the offspring of David, that will save the Jewish people last. Vishamu Oimer, over there in the Nevuah of Bilam, it says, Arenu v'layato goimer, I will see him and not now, Kishemevar ba'arucha, ubeprotis ha'psukim shel Parshas Seinu, like the Rambam explains at length and in detail the psukim in our Parsha, Shechetzi Harishon shel HaPasuk Koyal David. The Rambam divides and explains how the first half of the pasuk is referring to David. In a series of a few psukim, he says the first half is talking about David and Melch, the second half is going on Moshiach. And therefore, even though this is something that the Rambam says for all days of the year, a person needs to await Moshiach and believe in Moshiach all days of the year, and if not, it's as if he's denying in Torah. True. But this is even more an emphasis. It's even more emphasized in the time that we read this in Torah, this parsha, especially when we read it tzibur in public, we read it for a bracha prior to it, and after it, b'Shabbos Kodesh, and this Shabbos Kodesh, Chag Agul Yud Beis Tamuz. So that's another thing that's piled on top. So you have Yud Beis Tamuz, the Geula. So that has to do with the redemption of Mashiach. Then you have Shabbos. Shabbos has to do with Geula. Then you have the Shabbos that we read, Parshas Balak and the Nevuas Bilam that talks about the coming of Mashiach. And then another thing, Shabbos by Mincha we read from next week's Parsha, which is Parshas Pinchas. Shabbos. Also what we read on Torah on the Mincha of Shabbos, Haskalas Parshas Pinchas, we read the beginning of Parshas Pinchas. And Chazal teach us Pinchas Eliyahu, that Pinchas, that is Eliyahu Hanavi. And Eliyahu Hanavi is known as Mevasar Agula, the one that will tell us the news about the Geula coming. All of them are concerning him. It says, in the nice bisi shalom, behold, I'm giving him the covenant of peace. It says about Pinchas. Asher inyan hashalom b'shlem musay, that the idea of the peace in its most perfect state, begula mitzvah shlem idea Mashiach tzedkenu will be in the true and complete redemption through Mashiach. La'achri b'suras hagula de Pinchas Eliyahu, after relating the story of the Geula through Pinchas to Eliyahu Hanavi. Let's skip over to the second side, the second column, where it says Gimel on the left side of the page. Yesh lahaisiv b'zeh, we can add she'inyan ha'geula ha'chel ma'geula yud beis Tamuz, the idea of the redemption, beginning from the redemption of the 12th of Tamuz, u'lo yirak b'negei lebnei Yisrael b'shnei atzmum, it's not just concerning the Jewish people on their own, elagam b'negei lepulasam b'chol ha'olam, also concerning their effect on the entire world, that the entire world becomes now in a state and situation of Geula, of redemption. Now we'll skip over a little bit further to Ois Vav over here. Second column on the page, Ois Vav. Inyan Zeh, this idea, Geula higam biyachas, that the redemption is also in relationship to its effect in the entire world. Mudgish Gamba Gula based Tamuz is emphasized also on the redemption of the 12th of Tamuz. Chaga Geula Nikolish Shnei Yomim. Like we mentioned before, the Yom Tov of the redemption was established for 2 days. 2 days we do not recite Tachnun. 2 days are days of celebration. Yud Beis v'Yud Gimel Tam, the 12th and the 13th of Tamuz. Like we mentioned before, Yud Beis v'Tamuz Hayrak v'Suras Hagula, because on the 12th of Tamuz was only telling us the story and the being told that he would be redeemed. But the freedom was not actually given to the Frierdiker Rebbe in a revealed way. Since this day, the 12th of Tamuz was a government holiday. And the government offices in his city of exile was closed by the rules of the Soviet Union. Only on the next day, Tamuz, on the 13th of Tamuz, was the revealed, was he giving the revealed freedom? So the Rebbe asks a very interesting thing. When you understand, since all matters in the world, especially the redemption of the leader of the generation, are by divine providence. Why did Hashem do it that the freedom should be delayed an additional day because of a government law and the offices were closed? To such a degree, we even mention and emphasize this every single year by establishing the holiday of redemption for 2 days. So by establishing for 2 days, we are saying that the government delayed the actual redemption. So like the Rebbe always does, instead of looking at something in a negative, he turns it around to a positive. So he's going to bring from the Alter Rebbe's Gula and Yutas Kislev. I'm just saying outside what he brings, that by Alter Rebbe's redemption from Yutas Kislev, it says that the Alter Rebbe wrote about his redemption to the Baruch Mezhebuzer, who was a grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, that he said that it affected all the wonders of his redemption. Ayutas Kislev was so powerful, it affected also in the eyes of the ministers and officers and all the nations that are all the countries of the king, paraphrasing the expression of the Megillah. And the Rebbe asks the same question. Why is it not the same question, but a similar vein? Since that time was a time of, it was the powerful redemption of Chassidus, and Chassidus is about the main thing about the Chutzah spreading the wall springs outward, and it's about Rosh Hashanah Chassidus. Why do you have to bring in about the effect that it had on the officers and the nation? It seems to be of no consequence. What we're concerned about is Chassidus was allowed to go free. Now Chassidus will spread. This will bring Moshiach and so on. The Rebbe says, let's read inside on the right side of the page. Shlomo Rabbi Yehuda would say in the explanation. Since these two redemptions, the 19th of Kislev of the Alter Rebbe and the 12th and 13th of Tamuz of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Shuras Imagula Mitzvah Shleima is connected with the true and complete redemption. When Moshiach comes, the entire world will become refined, including also the nations of the world. Then I'll transform the nations, they should serve him all at once. Therefore, we emphasize the connection of the nations of the world to these redemptions. The effect and influence that these geulas had on the nations, because since the geula with Mashiach has to do with the nations, so their geulas also have to influence the nation. Like the words of the Alter Rebbe in that letter concerning his redemption on the 19th of Kislev, that Hashem made a wonder in the eyes of all the officers and all the nations. So too concerning the redemption of the 12th of Tamuz, this was in a revealed way, to the eyes of all the officers and all the nations. Tamuz, and even more so on the 12th of Tamuz, not just was it made well known to the eyes of all the nations of the earth. This was actually reported in newspapers in America, I believe, about the Frierdiker Rebbe being released from prison. Even the official document of the release, not only the command and directive that was given to release him from the capital of the Soviet Union, but even the actual official transmission of this document, this had to be in such a way Nicker umudgish and nasal b'choykam medina should be recognizable and emphasized. This is done according to the laws of the country. Through that the freedom was delayed until the 13th of Tamuz. And then the government offices was open in an official way according to the laws of the country. Derech Agav, the Rebbe was very careful to make sure that people follow the laws of the country. For example, there were different occasions where the Rebbe gave different people or organizations outside of America, he gave them money. He gave them sometimes yichidus. He would pull out of his drawer certain bills and give it for whatever purpose for that person over there. And the Rebbe would often either give them l'chatchila, not American money. He would send them initially Israeli money or whatever, because in Israel, for example, I don't know if the law still is now that way, but it used to be that you weren't allowed to have American money. If you had, let's say, U.S. currency, you had to right away change it. So the Rebbe would, or the other countries that the Rebbe was giving people money from, so he would give them the currency if he had available currency of that country, and if not, he would tell them, make sure to exchange this, when you get to the country for the legal tender of that country. So in a similar vein over here, we have this idea of the Previous Rebbe needing to get his documents in a legal and official way, following the laws of the land. And in this matter, the influence of the redemption on the eyes of all the officers, the Rebbe said there was something unique that year, the year of 1989, that in the Congress, they had actually issued some type of proclamation about the idea of thanks to Hashem for the Previous Rebbe being saved at this time. This would bring also to not just the spreading of Yiddishkeit amongst Yidden, but it also brings to the spreading of the seven laws of the seven laws of Noach, and as a preparation of the time when it will be that the entire world will be transformed to serve the Eibishter as one, and the government, in other words, the United States, proclaimed that this day, it's a day of goodness and kindness to follow in his ways. Let us maybe skip a little bit further. Let's go a little bit further over here. The ice test, second column over here on the page. The lesson from everything we learned about before concerning what we have to do in action, standing in the day of a redemption on the 12th of Tamuz. The Chalbi and Shabbos Kodesh, Chukas-Balak, that comes out on the day of Shabbos. The Shabbos where we read Parshas Balak, Shabbat Nemar, that in Parshas Balak it relates Niba, and it prophesies B'shnei Mashiachim concerning the two Mashiachs, meaning, like we said before, David HaMelech is called the first Mashiach, and the Gula, the Mashiach of the Gula Asidah is called the final Mashiach. And it's after midday, skip the parentheses, Mana Mincha, the time of Mincha, Shabbat Kodesh, and Parshas Pinchas, Zel Yom Vasar Agula, that in it we read in Parshas Pinchas, who is El Yo, the one who will tell us the news of the Geulah. We have to emphasize with much more power and strength about strengthening the belief in the coming of Moshiach, and looking forward to his coming. I will await for him in every day that he will come. This comes about including and specifically idea limud HaTorah Binyane Agula, through studying Torah and taps of Geula, beginning from the Parsha of this week, the Parsha of Balak talks about the Nevuah of the Geula. It's also we have to learn the Sefer Hayad of the Rambam, which is a Sefer with delivers everything in a halachic manner. The final two chapters of the entire 14 volumes of the Rambam is called the Halachas of Kings and Muhammad and King Moshiach. That studying these matters, it's as if whoever's involved in this, it's as if he's performing it by daysim and marim, mazarzim, and poilim, take it from poil mamish. Through this, we speed up and we quicken and we affect it immediately in actuality. In addition to this, and this is also primary, to increase in all activities of spreading the well springs outward. And this depends on the coming of Moshiach, like we said before in the first chapter. Beginning from studying the Torah of the one whose redemption came about, to study the Mamarim of the previous Rebbe, talks of the previous Rebbe, and especially those that were published recently. This has the advantage of being something totally new. Amongst all the other activities of spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit and the well springs outward, this was the year that the Rebbe proclaimed as a year of building. So we should add in matters of building, but the Torah tefillah gmach, building houses of Torah, houses of davening, houses of doing acts of kindness. Like was spoken about at length in the Fabrengen. Prior to that, the Rebbe spoke about this idea of the importance of building on Shabbos Parshas Korach that year. Al Dvar Ishtatvus Shal Nesidareinu Bala Gula, and the participation of the leader of our generation, the one whose Gula is B'schum Shal $100, that the Rebbe was going to participate with an amount of $100 called Elish Yadil Lakam Sheisiku opinion. To all those that will let the Rebbe know that they added in building, I should skip the parentheses, I should provide, surely they made this well known, and they'll make this even more well known. Surely we'll use out these days, these auspicious days, the continuation, conclusion of the day of Shabbos, Yud Beis Tamuz, and also Motzei Shabbos Kodesh Yom Rishon, the day after Shabbos, Sunday, and Yud Gimel Tamuz, the 13th of Tamuz, 12th Tamuz, till we get to the 15th of Tamuz. Then the moon of the month of Geula is complete. That's the 15th of every Hebrew month. Shleimus HaGeula, which indicates that the Geula, the redemption, is B'Shleimus. And Shloisha Yomim, that means that we have 3 days of celebrating Geula. We have Shabbos, we have Sunday, and we have the 15th. So then, but last Zimne have Chazaka. There's 3 times there's a Chazaka, Larich, Lahamsha, Bisfadis, the Me'agula, to set up and to continue and Fabrengens of the days of redemption. That with this we will inspire and accept upon ourselves good resolutions concerning all the matters that I've spoken about before. And even more so, in each one of these Fabrengens, should be 3 good resolutions. And the 3 lines of Torah and Tefillah and Chasadim, etc. And the Rebbe concludes, let's skip over how this will impact Shivasar B'Tamuz. Let's go to the bottom of the first column. Shivasar B'Tamuz. And when Shivasar B'Tamuz comes along, Toich Gimel Yomel Tazvav Tamuz, which is within 3 days of the 15th of Tamuz, to Toich Gimel Yomel Yudbezit Gimel Tamuz, that's 15th of Tamuz within 3 days of the 12th, 13th of Tamuz, Yehachu Yom Elu. So these days will become transformed. Skip the parentheses. L'sason l'simchal Yom Tovim, the days of joy, rejoicing, and gladness, and happiness, and holidays. Because in the days prior to this, beginning from the celebration of the 12th of Tamuz, which the Yosef Adnai Shenis Yodeg Asaf Nitchi Yisrael, it says about Moshiach's times that Hashem will add a second time his hand, and he will gather those scattered of Yidden. This is this Yosef, this addition that Hashem increases, will happen specifically through the Yosef of our generation. He's playing off the name of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Yosef Yitzchak. Bala Gula, the one who was celebrating his redemption. Blessed Nitche Yisrael Baruchnis, that his job was that he collected those scattered Yidden spiritually. Yosef Hashem li ben Acher. I will add from me even another son, meaning Lasis Ma'acher ben, like the Rebbe often says, to transform and make him somebody that is another, someone seemingly outside and not relating to all this, to make him into a son. Then our mouths will be filled with laughter. Like it's hinted in the second name of our leader of our generation, Yitzchak, Al Shem Kol Shemeh Yitzchak, because it says that Rivka said, Sarah said, whoever will hear will laugh on my back for me. The idea of laughter is also connected with the true and complete redemption. Chazal say, that in the future they will say specifically to Yitzchak, you are our father. So Yitzchak has a special connection with the Gula. But take it from Miyad Mamish, immediately this should take place.
Amen.